Candi Waller is here today on the Locked On Commanders podcast. Join me to talk about training camp, what she saw over the weekend, and then as we got week 3 started with the Washington Commanders, what we expect in this first lead up to the first preseason game, and a little bit more. All that coming right now on the Locked On Commanders podcast.
Your daily podcast on the Washington Commanders, part of the Locked On Podcast Network. Your team every day.
Welcome in, Commanders fans, to the Locked On Commanders podcast, your daily podcast covering the Washington Commanders, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day. We are, again, your daily podcast covering the Washington Commanders. We are free and available on all platforms, including YouTube and the WUSA 9 Plus app. Your CBS affiliate in Washington, D.C. has a new app that is a game changer for local sports and DMV coverage. Just download the WUSA 9 Plus app now for your Roku or Amazon Fire Stick. I'm David Harrison, covering your Washington Commanders for Sports Illustrated Commanders Country. My co-host Chris Russell, not here for this episode, but you can find him on the Team 980 with Pete Medhurst, Monday through Friday, 9 to noon Eastern, or anytime along with this show on the Audacy app. No matter how you're tuning in, we appreciate you making the Locked On Commanders podcast your first listen or view of the day. Joined now here on the Locked On Commanders podcast by Candi Waller at CWall SE. That's CWallse. CWall Sports and Entertainment, who's got you covered for all the DMV sports, which of course, Candi, means the Washington Commanders, which is where I've gotten to meet you this year and getting to know you a little bit and hanging out on the sideline, talking football and observing the eventual 2022-2023 Super Bowl champion Washington Commanders, right? I think we're all in agreement there potentially. So some interesting things happening. Look, I'm in Tampa this week. I'm here on assignment covering the Buccaneers. I cover the Bucs and Commanders for Sports Illustrated and for the podcast network that I work for. So every once in a while, I got to shift down south of Florida to do my Bucs due diligence. So that's what I'm doing this week. So since I can't be on ground training camp, Candi, I know you're there. You're one of the people that I talk to the most while we're there. So I figure we bring you in. And let's start with Saturday, because while I was driving to Tampa, you and thankfully a good amount of Commanders fans were in FedEx Field watching practice. So what was your kind of general takeaway from, and the feel really from the fans as well, from the Saturday practice at FedEx Field?
Dave, listen, Saturday at FedEx Field was exciting. It was exciting. Sometimes it's like, oh, okay, fan practice, not really sure how many fans are going to come out, if anyone is going to come out. And I was really pleased to see the turnout on Saturday. Fans were engaged the entire time. I mean, of course, as the players and the coaches are coming out of the tunnel to get ready for warm-ups and practice, I mean, the crowd just gets into it. It's like they just cannot wait to see who's coming out of the tunnel. So that's always a lot of fun. And they were in there the entire time. I mean, nice. They were engaged. They were watching. The team did a good job of also kind of having interviews throughout the evening, having performances by the command force. So that was really cool. Nice. And of course, at the end, the players stuck around. Let me just tell you, Chase Young, I was leaving. I mean, this is after the pressers. Mm-hmm. And we looked outside and we were like, wow, Chase is still out here signing autographs. I mean, the players took a lot of time. Chase was like one of the last folks out there still signing those autographs. And it was all good vibes, definitely. Sure.
That's great. Yeah. I mean, I saw a video of Chase Young when he walked into the not in the stadium generally, but onto the field, right from the tunnel. And I heard the fans, kind of light up, and that's the atmosphere you want. We were all out there that day. Everybody laughed at the Washington Commanders, and there's like a small handful of fans. And look, not only is that bad for the fans, like more fans who want to be there and all that. That's bad for the players. It's bad for us. I mean, it adds to the atmosphere and kind of reminds everybody of why we got into this business in the first place. So great to see all those fans out there, and then the players appreciate it, but. From the practice though, Candi, so on Saturday night, FedEx Field, who was the best player? Because we talked about this and of course it's the day I'm gone, right? But Marken, Michel, my guy, I've been waiting for number 19 to flash and to do some of the things that we saw him do in OTAs and the mini camp. So of course I'm not there to see it. That's when he decides to turn up, but hey, good news for him. Social media is everywhere. I've got good friends like you out there on ground to make sure that the message is passed along. So very happy for him. But was he the shining spot, the shining star of the day, or was there someone else who kind of outshined him a little bit?
Listen, you said it. 1-9. You know what I'm saying? 1-9. Marken Michel, number 19. He has been making a case for himself on why he needs to be on this roster. And he absolutely showed improved yet again on Saturday in front of folks. We hear all of the other names, right? But yes, I know that fans walked away from that like probably Googling, who is this? Even though we've been talking about it and mentioning it and showing videos and pictures like, hey, watch out for 1-9 here. Yes, absolutely made a statement, as he has, like you mentioned, all throughout OTAs and so far in training camp. I have to give a shout out to, from a defense perspective, not to be defensive heavy, because I've been heavy on the defense in a good way, in a positive way. Cameron Curl. Cameron Curl continues to impress. He continues to show that he is maturing and evolving and wanting to make a name for himself on the team and across the league. He's getting fans excited. So for certain, Marken, I was pleased and I had to smile quite a bit seeing him out there, as well as Cameron Curl. And I want to go back to a name that we've all been talking about, but not necessarily in this sense. It's Curtis Samuel. I was happy the fans got to see Curtis Samuel, and we did too. Not just the fans.
That's a big one.
Got to see him in pads. Got to see a connection from Carson to Curtis. That was good. It may not have been the most, razzle dazzle, so to speak, but it was still good to see him out there moving without issue, right? And bringing that intensity. So I'll give those three. It's kind of my thumbs up from FedEx practice.
I would say, and that's great. And I remember Friday practice, we saw Curtis earlier in the week, but then Friday he was shut down again. So you kind of have this feeling like, all right, well, hopefully they're shutting him down today so they can spin him up in front of the fans, because just like us getting to see him, that kind of gives you that comfortable feeling of, okay, when Ron comes out and Curtis has missed, 2 or 3 practices in a row, but he says, listen, it's part of the process. He's coming along. We've got a plan, When you get to see him, that's what gives you that confidence in that plan. So I'm glad that the fans were able to see number 10 running around the FedEx field surface. So let's start with the play of the day. So Marken Michel has 2 touchdown catches. Curtis Samuel is out there doing some things. We also saw a video of Carson Wentz hitting Terry McLaurin. Which of the plays that were available would you pick as kind of the play of the day from that FedEx event?
I have to give it to Carson and Terry. I mean, Terry, Terry, he's another one. You mentioned Chase and the crowd just erupting when Chase came out of the tunnel and onto the field. But I'm going to tell you, you see it at practice, and FedEx Field was no different. When Terry McLaurin gets out there, and you can tell it's like he's still, even himself, trying to get used to it. Like, wow, they're really cheering for me this way. And they just wouldn't stop. Once he got out there, the crowd just could not simmer down after that. They were hyped all during warmups. So I think that was an exciting display to see, from Carson to Terry and just all of, just everything, and the off-season fans concerned and worried about whether or not the team was going to be able to extend Terry and all those things. But I'm telling you, I felt, I think the entire stadium, maybe just a sigh of relief, for sure with Curtis, but with Terry, that Carson to Terry connection, I think that's exactly the excitement that fans want to see.
Outstanding. Yeah. And I remember, first day of training camp, Terry McLaurin, obviously first day back, wasn't there for mini camp and OTAs because of the contract situation. I actually felt bad for Kelvin Harmon, because Kelvin Harmon comes walking down the player ramp ahead of Terry McLaurin, and people are just anticipating Terry walking up. So nobody says, oh, Kelvin or, Harmon or anything. And then as soon as Terry steps up, it's, oh, Terry. And then Kelvin kind of looked over his shoulder like, oh, I guess I'm just chopped liver now. That's when you're a grinder. So fans, we love you guys being out there. The players, give the Kelvin Harmons of the world a little bit of love too. Yeah. They appreciate you guys as well. So is Tress Way. I don't think I've seen Tress Way. Anytime somebody yells Tress Way, he always goes over and says hi to them. So another practice on Monday. So Sunday, the players were off. Saturday night at FedEx, they got the day off Sunday. So back at it Monday morning. What did you see Monday morning kind of from a player aspect? Let's kind of hit the same notes. kind of the player of the day of Sunday's practice?
It's today was more, it was more of, or it was more of the, because of course they're not in pads, right? So they wore pads quite a bit last week. And so it was definitely not walkthroughs. They were going a lot more through the progressions. It was super hot. So I feel like Ron might have, had the practice maybe ended about 10 minutes, maybe earlier than normal. Was it just a little bit before 11 that it ended? But the defense, I think, and it's not just one player on the defense, and we've seen this, right? Where Coach Chris Harris is just hyping up his guys. And at that point, all eyes are everywhere. Those defensive backs, they are literally just anticipating the throw. They got their eyes on the quarterback. They got their eyes on the football. And it was another one of those days at practice, even going through the progressions and just dealing with the heat. They were still turning it up and flying around everywhere. So not necessarily just one player or play. It's just that whole unit, position group of the defensive backs are continuing to be consistent and impressed during camp.
Yeah, Coach Harris, one of the great motivators. I mean, listen, there are times where he gets going, and I'm like, you know what, 31, you get out, I'm coming in, I'll run this play, I'll get down the Buffalo nickel, but of course, I would be killed on the field if I did that. Sam Cosme would see me coming and just get to the second level faster than you've ever seen him get before and just level me. So, play of the day. So, I mean, even if the defense just completely won the day, which we've seen happen and before, and look, that's more of a testament towards the defense, I think, sometimes than it is on the offense. Again, growing pains are going to happen, but even if it's on the defense side of the ball, what was the play that stood out the most to you?
You know what? Interesting enough, the play that kind of stood out the most to me, and this is something I know I just cheered on the defense's backs a bit here, but I do want to give some credit to the linebackers. I know that's been an area of concern, and being able to see the linebackers get after it in terms of getting to the quarterback. I saw them do that a couple times, getting right to, to Carson, and even Taylor or Sam at times. But I've seen, Cole Holcomb was able to do that a time or two today, as well as Jamin Davis. I know folks have been concerned about that group, but I see the progression as camp has gone on. And so I want to give them a shout out for sure, because again, it was like, you don't really want to say anything to make anyone be alarmed about, quarterback play, but that was the play, because the linebacker is another position that I know folks are concerned about. But they definitely made some good plays there today, for sure.
This episode of Locked On Commanders podcast brought to you in part by Built Puffs, a Built Bar product at Built.com. If you haven't tried Built Puffs, you are depriving yourself of one of life's greatest joys, a marshmallowy, soft protein bar that is covered in 100% chocolate. So not only does it taste great, but it's good for you. What's great about Built products is they all are made using collagen protein, which your body absorbs more efficiently, and it provides tons of health benefits for you. So not only are you eating something that tastes delicious, but it's actually good for you. So head to Built.com and get your favorite Built Puffs or your favorite Built Bars, whatever your favorite Built product is. And when you do, use a promo code LOCK15 to get 15% off of that order. Again, it's promo code LOCK15 at Built.com. She is Candi Waller at CWall SE, joining us here on the Locked On Commanders podcast, covering all DMV sports. So make sure you're checking out everything she's doing all around the DMV sports scene. But we're talking Commanders today, and we're talking week 3 of training camp. Candi, week 2 capped off right by the FedEx field practice. That was the end of week 2. Monday is the beginning of week 3. Also the beginning of the first game week of the preseason. The Carolina Panthers. Not the Commanders, the Panthers, the Carolina Panthers coming to town to face off against the Burgundy and Gold. What is it you want to see? What are your overall thoughts kind of week 3? You've been at training camp before. You've seen the development of a team, the progression that they go through, week 1, week 2. We've already had those in the books. So what do we need to see in week 3 from the team, defense-specific players maybe, as they get through this next week of training camp, but also get ready for their first live opponent?
I think preseason game 1 is where we really need to see the offense gel together consistently. Coach Rivera has said that Carson will play. He has not said, of course, how long, what have you, but he's made it clear that Carson will play. So then I guess that can also allude to the rest of the ones, or those that are looking at ones and twos, will play as well against Carolina, which is good, which they should. But I think now in game tempo, pace, all of those things is where you kind of want to see it start to come together. I'm not saying it needs to be perfect, but what I am saying is some of the inconsistencies and inaccuracies we've been seeing throughout OTAs and camp kind of need to just feel that progression is being made versus just saying it. And so really want to see that against another defense, right? And then from a defense perspective, I really want to see is what we're seeing real? Like, is this real? I remember last year there was so much to say about the defensive line and the defense overall, and it didn't really pan out that way for the season for that overall unit. So I really think this is the year. I think, David, we stood out there and we said, you know what? Just looking at the ones on this defense on paper is mean. They're excellent. So I'm really hoping that what we've seen, who they are on paper, really comes to light game time on Saturday for certain. I really think, I'm just feeling good. And you always want to say, this is their year. This is their year. Then you get in the season like, well, I don't know. Maybe next year. So hopefully
next year will be the year. That'll be it.
Exactly.
For real this time, guys. Last year we were joking.
This time. So that's what I want to see. I want to see the for reals this time. And going back to the offense, I really want to see how the offensive line does.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, listen, that defense, and we've talked about this too, right off air and off to the side. Like, either this defense is playing really, really well during training camp, or this offense just isn't that great. And it doesn't look like a situation where the offense just isn't that good and the defense is taking it. It looks like a situation where the defense is doing things to impose their will on the offense, because at the same time, there are moments where the offense kind of gets back a little bit and kind of gives them a taste of their own medicine. So you hope that what is happening is that iron is sharpening iron instead of iron just cutting through butter. That's the best analogy I can kind of make. And going into last year, it looked at times like this defense was just getting pushed around by people. And this version of the defense, even though a lot of the players are the same, the mentality just kind of looks a little bit different, that they're ready to come out and kind of be the bully a little bit. They're going to tell opposing offenses, no, here's what you're going to do, because we're going to make you do it. And that's the attitude that I kind of want to see carry into this first game and then through the first game into the regular season. So hopefully we get to see that. A lot of groups competing, right? There's some competition in the back end of the DB group. Maybe, we saw a little bit of David Mayo running with the ones and some certain packages that Ron Rivera talked about. But then there's also some D-line stuff with Federico Mathis. How often is he going to get in there? But then on offense, really, it seems like that's where the bulk of the competition is coming from: running backs, wide receivers. Beyond the top three, I think Terry, Curtis, and Jahan are obviously kind of your top three. But even though like Cam Sims, Dax Milne, we're pretty confident they'll make the roster. What order are they in, and how often are they on the field? Tight ends, running backs. Candi, there's competition all over, and it looks really good. Which position group do you think is the most competitive right now of all of them?
I'm glad you mentioned the running backs. I think that is a position group that's kind of under the radar right now, but they've been all making cases for themselves. I know everyone's been, of course, everyone knows Antonio Gibson. We've been hearing about, J.D. McKissick, of course, the rookie Brian Robinson. But there's something to be said about Jared Patterson, right? And Jonathan Williams, who was on their practice squad last year. Jonathan Williams has been playing very well. He is having a great camp. Yeah. And nobody's really talking about it. Ron brought him up a little bit. I think that was last week or one of those, that maybe it was walkthrough day or something. And I'm like, I'm glad somebody said something, because because 41 has been making moves and been very consistent. Completely making a case. We're going to go back to that wide receiver group. Kelvin Harmon has been solid. Yeah. During camp, he really has. Go back to the Kelvin Harmon, Marken, Michel. That's going to be a tough decision to make, for sure. I think what's going on now. I'm gonna move to the tight ends. with the tight ends, they're dealing with so many injuries right now.
Right.
Both Cole Turner and Curtis Hodges were kind of working on the side field. And I'm like, well, what happened to Curtis? I mean, I know Cole Turner was in, John Bates came out a bit for the individual position drills, but everyone knows Logan Thomas is hurt. So I'm like, oh man, like that was the tight end group. I know when you and I were first talking, I was like, I feel really good about the tight end.
Right.
And now I was like, okay, half of them are hurt. All right. So it can go on and on and on. But I really think on that offensive side of the ball, there's a lot of not sure who's going to get those last spots on the depth chart. Would not be upset of any of them getting those last spots because they've all been showing improving for certain. They're all having really good camps.
Yeah, and I mean, I think that's the great problem that Washington's going to have when it comes to cut time is it's going to be hard, but that's a good thing. Like, you don't want it to be an easy decision. It's like, oh, we got these 7 guys, these other guys, we'll see if we can put them on the practice squad. Like, no, you want to have to make those hard calls and kind of think about how it's going to impact everything else and the ripple effects and all those things. And yeah, you mentioned Jonathan Williams specifically. That's great because I think he's very quietly having a really great camp. And I know, my co-host here, Chris Russell, that was one of his pre-training camp bold predictions that Jonathan Williams was actually going to get that last running back spot, and Jarrett Patterson is going to end up on the practice squad. But Jarrett, no slouch himself. Like he's not just going to, if Jonathan Williams takes that last spot, he's going to take it. Jarrett is not going to let him have it. But we got a lot of good rookies on this team as well. Brian Robinson, Cole Turner, when he's healthy and all those things. Percy Butler. I mean, Christian Holmes, the 7th round pick, has just flashed as well. Chris Paul, I mean, he's looked good in certain sets and in some of his one-on-ones, granted with guys, further down the depth chart. But who is your favorite rookie? I don't care how you want to analyze this, from talent, depth chart, or just the guy that just makes you smile the most when you see him play football, because all these guys are doing well. Who's your favorite rookie so far?
Brian Robinson. Yeah. I mean, I just really think Brian Robinson, he's so tough.
Yep.
He is so tough. And it was one of those things where it was like, okay, can't wait to get in pads. And there's been so much talk about him forcing missed tackles, and we can see it. We can see it. He is taking a hit and holding on to that football. He is holding on to the football. He is not taking that football lightly. It is like, wow. I mean, of course, gameplay, it remains to be seen, but I really enjoy watching that position group anyway. Basically with where we stand, they're right there. So it's like, it's hard not to miss them or just stand there and just kind of be, like, wow, they're really going for it. But I think, Coach Randy Jordan compared him to Alfred Morris and Adrian Peterson in terms of size and just overall toughness. And that's real. That is real. I've really had a good time watching him. And I think he's getting better.
Mm-hmm.
We saw it, minicamp OTAs, but I really think he's getting better as the days go on.
Yeah, and that's your hands, but that's actually what I'm really looking forward to, because it sucks to have to miss this week. You know what I mean? It's part of being the double duty guy, and
they had
right. Yeah, I mean, look,
cupcakes, stuff.
Listen, I'm not going to complain about going to watch Tom Brady play football for a week. Like that's something that you'll never hear me do. But at the same time, you want to be on the beat. But look, I'm looking forward to it, because when I get back now, it's been a week. It'll have been 5 practices that since the last time I saw them. So I'm looking forward personally to seeing, like, does Carson look different? It's almost like coming home from a business trip and you're like, oh, you look at your kids, you're like, oh man, you grew since I've been gone. And they're not kids, so it's not the same sense, but I think it kind of fits. So I'm looking forward to getting back to see that. So this episode of Locked On Commanders podcast brought to you by Dave. Level with me. We've all been in situations where we were a little strapped for cash. Maybe we can only put a few gallons of gas in the tank, or we're stretching out the groceries that we have until the next payday where we can go buy some more. Well, what if you could look forward to future you and look for a little help from yourself in the form of cash today? Well, now you can do that with Dave, the banking app that can help you get up to $500 instantly with extra cash. That's more money to fill your tank, buy some more groceries, pay the bills, whatever you need it for. And the best part is there's no credit check and there is no interest. Millions of people have already downloaded the Dave app to get the financial relief that they need with extra cash. So if you're in a pinch and you need some extra help, download Dave and think of it as a helping hand from future you. Download the Dave app right now from the App Store. That's DAVE Sign up for the extra cash account and get up to $500 instantly. For terms and conditions, go to dave.com/legal. Instant transfer fees apply. Banking provided by Evolve. Member FDIC. Future you will thank you. She's Candi Waller. This is Locked On Commanders podcast. Joining me here at CWall SE on Twitter. Make sure you're following Candi so you can get all of the things going on over at CWall Sports and Entertainment, covering all of your DMV sports. So make sure you give her a follow. Check out the great work that she is doing over there. Finally, Candi, this is the big question. I know my answer. Is this still a defensive-minded team? Are the Washington Commanders still a defense-first team that's going to win with pass rush, stop the other team, and then get an early lead, run the ball? Or is this a team that we expect Carson Wentz to throw the ball 30, 35 times a game and try to get 3 touchdowns through the air every day?
It's definitely got to be a balance. Carson cannot, I would not recommend Carson throwing the ball that many times. I think the defensive line is exactly what we were talking about a moment ago. They have to be who they are on paper. They have to be who they are on paper. They have to have a strong showing on third down. They have to get the other team off the field. They have to get the other team's offense off the field to give. And as long as Carson has a balance, right? He's got his receivers and hopefully some healthy tight ends and a solid run game. And I think you can see the Commanders do some really good things this season. With the schedule that they have. I think we've discussed this too offline a bit. You got to go into Dallas. What is that? 2-0? What week see Dallas week 3? Or week 4?
Dallas is week 4. So you got you got Jacksonville, Detroit, Philly, and then Dallas.
So you at least got to try. And definitely first 2 weeks, you got to get those.
Yeah.
If you can go into Dallas with one division game under your belt, that is of course it's the optimal, scenario, right. But for real though, it's serious. Like they really need to show that, and where it's an opportunity to showcase the talent they have in each one of those position groups. Yeah. I don't think the team, we feel really good about all of these position groups, but I don't think one sole position group is going to win you the game.
Right.
So everybody's got to show, everybody has to come together and show improve, and the coordinators are going to have to really maybe even tailor that a bit so that they're playing on these players' strengths, and they're using them in ways where the players are most strong starting out, instead of kind of forcing them into situations where they may struggle.
Yeah, no, absolutely. I think it's a great point, because you look at those first 4 matchups, right? And not to get too early in the game previews, but like Jacksonville, you have a more mobile quarterback, not like a Pat Mahomes, but a more mobile quarterback. Travis Etienne apparently is looking pretty good there in Jaguars training camp. So you expect kind of they're going to move the line of scrimmage. So your edges have to be set. Your linebackers got to be fluid, but then also your safety's got to crash down and run support to keep them in third and long. But then you get to the Detroit Lions, more of an outside traditional offensive attack with the tight ends taking advantage of soft middles of the field. So you got to be disciplined in your zones and your coverage and not be so aggressive, I think. And then Philly, the pass rush, if you can get home, cause some problems with Jalen Hurts, but your safeties got to be on point, because I think if you get any big chunk plays in the air, it's going to come from a safety being out of play. And then Dallas, you've got, again, they're kind of a mixed bag, honestly. Like Ezekiel Elliott, is he going to be anything by week 4? Who's going to be their number 1 receiver? So as of right now, you kind of don't know how you're going to attack that offense. So I think it's a great point you made. The defense week in, week out, like whatever your job is, whatever your key is for that opponent, you got to make sure you're on it. And I agree with you. I think this is a defense first team. And, I kind of like it. I was never a basketball star, but, I played a little bit, and I had a coach once that was, every trip down the court, we're looking for 2. We're looking for the easy basket, move the ball around, get someone open for an easy shot. Let's get the 2. If we get a transition possession, or if we get an extra possession, we keep them from scoring. Okay, now let's look for the 3. But if it's an even battle, let's take the 2 and let's grind it out till we see our opening. Kind of like a boxing mentality, even though I never boxed. Don't go for the big swing every single time. But speaking of big swings, Candi, I'm going to put you on the spot here. This is completely unfair, and somebody will probably not like your response. Who is the Washington Commanders starting quarterback in the 2024 season?
Ooh, I'm sure he's going to like this. Hey, listen, Oh, wait, 2024?
2024.
Well, hey, so listen, this is really Carson's job to lose, but hey, if he loses it, I think it's Sam Howell's.
Okay. So not Taylor. We don't think we've seen enough out of Taylor because I think he does look better this year than he did last year. But I mean, do you think there's enough ceiling there for him to get that high, or do you think we're almost to the peak?
I think we're almost to the peak. I mean, you're right. You're exactly right. Taylor looks better. Yes, he does. And I would, because we've seen Taylor, so we know that the offense can follow Taylor, and the team overall can follow Taylor. But
Right.
I do think 2024, if Carson, this is his shot, this is his job to lose, and if it happens that way, I think 2024 it will be Sam Howell.
Yeah, I can see it. I mean, even if Carson comes out this year, even if he comes out next year, does well. You could see this team still letting him walk away, let him go hit free agency, let him find another job, and Sam Howell takes the reins. It's hard to predict. That's why it's a hard spot. So everybody out there, if you just completely disagree, grain of salt. We're talking 2 years in the future, so don't get too bent up about it. But Candi, I appreciate you taking the question, and then boom, you hit it with confidence, and that's what we need our leaders out here to do. So Candi Waller at CWall SE on Twitter. CWall Sports and Entertainment got you covered for all your DMV sports. Make sure you give her a follow. Candi, thank you for coming in here to get us caught up. I look forward to seeing you on the practice field around this time 1 week from now.
Absolutely. I will see you there.
A big shout out to Candi Waller of CWall Entertainment and Sports. Make sure you go, or Sports and Entertainment, sorry. Make sure you go check her out. Check out all the great work she's doing. We thank you for making the Locked On Commanders podcast first listen or your first view every single day. Now make your second listen the Locked On Fantasy Football podcast. Vinny Iyer brings you the intellectual angle of fantasy football. Chris will be back tomorrow with Jay Gruden, former head coach in Washington, so you're not going to want to miss that conversation. And then I will be back to wrap up my part of the week as we go back and forth again. I am on site in Tampa, so we're kind of splitting the duties this week, so bear with us. We'll still bring you all the accurate and up-to-date Commanders information as we can get it. In the meantime, if you got questions or topics or comments about what we discussed today or in any other episodes, hit us up at lockedonwashingtoncommanders@gmail.com or call in and be a part of the show by dialing 301-615-3577. For Chris Russell, I am David Harrison. Make sure you're checking everything that we're doing at the Team 980 and at Commanders Country, part of Sports Illustrated. Until we speak again, please, if you're out and about, be safe, be kind to one another, wash your hands, don't drive like a maniac, and thank you for joining me right here on the Locked On Commanders podcast.